What's up everybody, my name is Rhett Thompson and today we are looking at these and the whole series of lenses really. These are the Voigtlander F.95 lenses for Micro Four Thirds. And so today we are trying to figure out just why are these lenses so popular, as well as checking out what you might want to use them for. I'm going to be using footage from random projects, including two short films, one called Pinky String, which you can find the Instagram for below, and the other is a film called Deals and Devils, which if you look in the description, you can watch the entire film for this Halloween spooky season. Anyway, enjoy some footage, guys. The two I decided to go with, by the way, are the 17 and 42.5, kind of like a 35 and an 85. I really wish I had the 10.5, don't really care about the 25, and that 60 looks great. Obviously they've got amazing build quality, you know, clickless and clicky apertures that you can switch if you're a photographer or you're a filmmaker, or if you just prefer one or the other. Amazing. Great focus ring, probably 180 degrees, which I think is the perfect middle ground. The build quality is great. No one's gonna say it's not. You can use it for lots of things. You can add in lots of accessories, and there's really just nothing wrong with these lenses, except for the fact that there's no weather sealing, obviously. So, little known fact, the V in Voigtlander actually stands for versatility. That's not true at all, but I mean, it is true on a different level. They are super versatile lenses. You can use them for all types of stuff, you know. You can use them for photo, for video, even as those cinema lenses, like I said, with the clickless aperture, you know what I mean? So they're, you know, a very good set of lenses if you do a lot of different types of things. So let's get into it. For photo, what is good about these things for photo? Well, if you want to stand out, you like that vintage aesthetic, you're using Instagram filters, these lenses certainly have a lot of character and a look wide open. There's a vintage look, there's that magenta color cast, it's a little bit soft, a little bit flattering for the features, for like portraits and things like that. And just that character makes it really fun, you know. There's a decent amount of sharpness, wide open, even at 0.95. But if you strop it down just a little bit, you know, especially if you set it to clicky aperture mode, you can do a lot of cool stuff with photography there. Are they the best photography lenses? No, they are all manual. There's no autofocus. There's no way to autofocus these. And so, is it going to be your first choice for photos? Probably not, but if you have something like a specific project in mind that needs a certain look, you want to stand out, or you just like taking your time, who knows? So for video, what is the big benefits here? Well, they have, like we talked about in build quality, that precise focus with the markings. You have a smooth aperture or a clicky aperture, depending on what you're doing for different light situations, and it's fast. If you're doing video, like weddings or things where you don't, you know, documentaries where you can't control the lighting super well, having a couple super fast lenses around is super handy and has saved me multiple times. So that fast aperture is going to be great for video. And honestly, I actually find fast lenses to a degree easier to focus with because you can tell when they're in focus, you know. I'm using my Leica 12-60, for example, watch the video. And anyway, at f4, it's like kind of hard to tell, like, is this in focus or not? You know, almost everything's in focus all the time. So when you're talking about critical focus, sometimes a faster aperture isn't always a bad thing. And even though these do have a super fast f.95 for light gathering, they're actually more like a 1.8 full frame equivalent for depth of field. which is not that bad. It's like close to f2. Not terrible. So an f1.8 depth of field with an f.95 light gathering is super great and really gets around the negative of micro four thirds as a sensor, which is that poor, relative poor low light settings. So very cool video lens and could solve a lot of problems for you depending on what you're doing. Another thing that's great about video is, well, obviously you're not going to want to put them at 0.95 all the time, depending on what you're doing. For commercials and things like that, 1.4 or f2 really turns these from like a quirky, vintage, crazy lens to a really sharp, modern looking piece of glass. Like, they look really solid, they have a lot of contrast, a lot of detail, a lot of sharpness, and none of that weird, crazy stuff that happens when they're wide open. So again, that versatility coming out and saying, look, these can be soft, dreamy, romantic lenses, but stopped down just a little bit, and now it's a sharp, contrasty, corporate video commercial lens, which is really cool that you have a lens that can do both, you know. A lot of vintage lenses never really get sharp enough for me to use in corporate settings or commercials or things like that, but these definitely do, so could be fun. So we've done photo, we've done video. Let's talk about cinema, and then I'll go into some more just various details of these lenses. So cinema, a great thing about these lenses are, look at these. I can't tell them apart unless I look down here where they say the focal lengths. These are basically the exact same size, the exact same weight, and the focus rings line up pretty well. The aperture rings slightly different, but they're pretty close to being very, very similar weights and sizes for camera rigs, for gimbals, for things like that. So from a cinematic standpoint, having lenses that physically line up really well and really closely, except for the 60 millimeter, that one is giant. But the 10.5, the 17.5, the 25, the 42.5, all have very similar build, size, weight, everything. So they're going to be great to use on a set in that regard, especially if you add in some of those focus gears like I was talking about earlier. Speaking of matching, another really important thing when you're on a set, for example, is the character and color and all that stuff matching on the lenses. And I will say the Voigtlanders are pretty much the best in that regard outside of a true cinema lens. So if you're using these on a set, you're swapping the 17.5, the 42.5, you're not really going to have to be pulling out a color chart and white balancing between scenes and everything. These lenses match really well, both in terms of color, contrast, flare, pretty much everything. I've only used these two lenses, but as far as I can tell from other research I've done online, the rest of the lenses in the series are pretty much the same story. So yeah, I think they could be used really easily in a cinematic setting, and I have. So let's get into some more stuff with these lenses. Yes, here's some footage. There's tons of character, they're soft, they're vintage, but also sharp and contrasty like I talked about when stopped down. My on-set experience with these lenses was really great. The front filter threads matching the same size for ND filters and other types of filters. The size was pretty good, just big enough to have gears and things like that. So in general, they fit pretty well into a film set of a lot of different types. Plus you can use them on cameras like the GH5, GH5S, as well as the Blackmagic Pocket 4K, which is what we used on Pinky String. They have some fun flares, but they're not really vintage style flares in my opinion. They're actually have pretty good lens coatings, and so even wide open, the flares are pretty well controlled on these lenses, I find, which is, it was surprising to me because any other 0.95 lenses I use are pretty cheap and can get a little wild when it comes to flare. Like the Midicon I have is just bonkers. So having really well controlled flare on these lenses, I don't know how I feel about it. I've even thought about removing the coating somehow, but it's probably not worth the trouble. They're still fun flares. They're just not super fun and feel more modern than you might expect. Speaking of versatility, once again, these lenses have an incredible, all of the lenses have an incredible close focus ability. I don't think it's technically macro, but it's close enough that I've never even really considered buying a macro lens for my GH5 because these already can focus so stinking close. Gotta stay monetized. So darn close these lenses can focus. I don't know. I really don't think you need a dedicated macro unless you're doing like a lot of super close-up work. Let's talk about some stuff I don't love so much with the Voigtlanders. First off, they're not super sharp, wide open, even compared to other 0.95s. They're super duper soft in those super close-up situations, and there's low contrast overall. There's a magenta color cast wide open that's pretty much solved once you stop down a little bit. And if you look at this video right here, you can tell the chromatic aberration isn't great either. You make the lens a little more out of focus. You can see the cat's eye shapes in the corners, take it or leave it, but when you stop the lens down, you actually get some weird stop sign shaped bokeh because the blades are straight, so not great for some situations, but not that bad either. Focus breathing is a little higher than I would like to see on a lens like this, but not the worst I've ever seen by a long shot. And I think we need to talk about the flares some more. Like we talked about before, they are pretty soft, they are pretty attractive, but they're sort of like halfway between a good technical performance and flare and a good characteristic flare. And it's really neither of those. It's just a pretty good characteristic and a pretty good performance. Another weird thing about these lenses is that the Sunstars are super not good, I don't think. I mean, I don't know what Sunstars are or I don't know what makes a good Sunstar, but I mean, this one just doesn't look super inspiring to me, so not the best option for Sunstars. And I think that is just the general takeaway in general from these lenses is they are just so versatile. Like I said, you can shoot photos, you can shoot video, you can shoot short films and cinematic sequences, you can shoot Instagram content, you can have it vintage and dreamy, you can have it contrasty. They are close-up macro lenses, everything. It's kind of insane to think about. You know, if you don't need a zoom lens, these Voigtlanders can do it all. And I've done all of those things with them consistently. And so if you are in the market for a lens like this, and you do a variety of work like I was talking about, I can't think of any better set of lenses for you on this system. So yeah, I just wanted to bring these lenses across. I know they're super popular. I know people love these things, but if you ever were wondering, why are they as popular as they are? They can't be that good. Well, they kind of are. Maybe they're not the right lenses for you. Maybe they're not even the right lenses for me, but they are amazing lenses, and I hope Voigtlander, let's see Voigtlander, can you make some full frame lenses? Because I would love to see some L mount stuff from you guys. So if you do, send it my way. Otherwise, I will see you guys in the next video. You know what to do. Like, comment, subscribe. This was only slightly scripted, so hopefully it all made sense. I didn't ramble too much, but yeah, I want to hear why you guys think these lenses are as popular as they are. So yeah, you guys know what to do. Like I said, any interaction helps with the video, helps it get boosted up. And if you like this video and subscribed, I will see you in the next one. Hit the bell too. What's it do? No one knows. Does it help? They say it does.